but fall hard in the sense that you need a better effort tonight.
You do. I have a tough time evaluating this one. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm looking at it as, all right, that's a Montreal team tonight anyway that is a lot better than their record indicates. They were effective against the Flyers. Why were they effective against the Flyers? Was it something they were doing, or were the Flyers just flat?
Or a combination of the two.
The Flyers could not get anything going against this team. And now when you look at it, 5-2 final, it comes down to the difference in the game being one bad line change, and 2 occasions where you had 3 players below the goal line when you shouldn't have. That ends up being the difference score-wise. I mean, obviously, puck possession leans heavily toward the Canadiens. Flyers get their scoring chances down for the amount of time that Montreal had the puck. But it's, again, the difference in the game here is 3 mistakes when you break it down that simply. So it's a hard one to maybe gather. But again, I think the best thing for the Flyers is that they have another one tomorrow night, and they can get right back out and try to recover from this.
I think there's a telling stat in this game that it certainly tells me a lot.
Okay.
The Flyers did not go on the power play the entire game. Now, the Flyers power play, let's not act like that would have been
right.
Okay, because I'm not. So, their power play is ranked 32nd in the NHL.
Yes.
Which by the way, is last.
There are 32 teams.
Yeah, 15.8% coming into tonight. But the fact that they didn't go on the power play against the team that has penalized the most minutes in the NHL, mind you, is disturbing because you didn't force them to take any penalties in the game, which to me says that we didn't try and dictate the terms. We didn't put them to the test nearly enough physically or just, the way that we try and control a game, like getting in on a forecheck, being relentless, being resilient, all those things. They didn't do nearly enough of that because the most penalized team in the NHL didn't put the worst power play in the NHL in action at all in this game. Now, there's 5 minutes of penalty time for Montreal in the game, but that's a fight.
Right.
And the Flyers actually ended up backwards, upside down on that because Allison picked up the 2 and 10 as well. So even the 5 minutes they took, they ended up with a power play, which I'm not sure if they scored on. I think they did. That was the Suzuki power play.
Yeah, they did score on a power play.
Yeah, and they lost Wade Allison in the process for 10 minutes as well.
17.
Yeah, all said and done, right? So, you look at this and you go, okay, we're talking about the recent play of this team, what they are recently in the sample size that we've been given, whether that's 10 games or we can go 13 games.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go 13 games, you look at this team, they have a record of 3-7-3 in their last 13. They've scored 31 goals per game, which is an average of 2.38 per game. And they've given up 45 goals. Granted, I think 3 of those 45 are empty net. But still. So 42 goals they've given up in their last 13 games. So let me give you the math on that. I said 32 divided by 13, that 2.46, that can't be right. That can't be right? Oh, no, 40. I went 32. You got to go.
Okay.
42 divided by 13. I screwed it up again. 42.
I like analytics, math.
3.23 goals is what they've given them. So, the thing that is really bothering me is that the standard, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago on Flyers Daily with Bill, we got to find out the standard and the relentless and resilienceness and identity and all those things. If it plays 82 games in this, it doesn't play all 82, but if it makes it 82 games.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be in question right now because this team has not played to that standard consistently enough over the past 13 games.
Sure. And I don't think any team in this league, I think Boston might be the closest to it I've seen in a long time that can play that standard for 82 games. It's very hard.
Watch him get bounced in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. Remember Tampa Bay in 2016? if you don't go through adversity, yeah, you get there, and the first time you get punched in the face, you're done. But anyway, at any rate, it's hard to keep that up for a whole 82-game season. But again, the successful teams in the league are going to do it more than the ones that aren't. I mean, you look at points percentage. Your goal, I think, generally in this league is a 750 at home and a 500 on the road.
Yeah.
And that requires consistent effort for long periods of time. And I don't know, effort is not the word I'm looking for there. It requires consistent execution for long periods of time.
And energized play.
Yeah.
I think they're all trying.
Right.
But trying isn't always, it's about trying in the smart way or, those kind of things.
Now, to your earlier point, they don't take a penalty. They don't get a power play tonight because Montreal doesn't take any minors. The way you get minors against you more often than not in this league is because you're going up against a team that, well, I guess I shouldn't say a team, but it's a situation where a player, for whatever reason, in that instant was quicker than your player, and you got to stick in there either on the hands or around the waist, or you tripped them up or something like that.
Reaching.
Yeah,
you're not moving your feet.
Yeah, that requires you to be quicker than the other team to draw penalties like that. Flyers were not quicker than the Montreal Canadiens tonight, and they also really could not generate a ton in terms of high danger scoring chances outside of that first 5 minutes of the third period. Most of the shots that went in on Jake Allen were pretty safe from his perspective. He had to make one nice save you mentioned on Scott Lawton earlier in the game, but there was not a lot going on in the first, second, and then the second half of the third periods that were all that threatening to Jake Allen. We do have some numbers in front of us in terms of some of the advanced statistics, and high danger chances on both sides tonight. We're 10-8.
Low event game.
Yeah, it's a low event game, and again, Montreal capitalizes on at least three different Flyers mistakes to score three of their goals. You got the one that's a good deflection. That's a great goal for them. And then the fifth one went off, I think, Ivan Provorov, as it turned out. So, again, it's a crazy game to judge because we sat there and we watched it and watched how the Flyers couldn't generate anything hardly. And, certain times they were really hemmed in their own zone. They didn't really get much sustained offensive pressure. Yet, it's even though it's a 5-2 game, it's three mistakes that are in the back of your net. So I don't know. It's one of those ones that I don't think this group is going to spend much time worrying about it. They're going to kind of maybe can't look over it and go right to Jersey tomorrow, and maybe just write it off as an aberration, hopefully.
Well, and when you say the speed, you're not talking about skating speed. It's playing speed.
Yes.
The speed of your play, and you can watch a team sometimes, and they can be the fastest skating team in the league, but they can play incredibly slow because the decisions are slow. The decisions are not made with urgency. The care in the decisions and where you put the puck and the way you maintain it, and when you do put it in peril, how much peril do you put it in? Those all kind of determine if you play fast. Yeah, the Flyers looked like they were playing a speed slower than the Canadiens, who were playing seemingly much more not thinking and instinctual tonight. And I think that's kind of why you saw what you saw, because you can really put a team in a tough position by the way you move the puck and how you play fast, and that's when they'll take penalties, because you're constantly in motion, the puck's constantly in motion, and they find themselves out of position and reaching, and that's when you can draw some penalties, and they just didn't do that.
Right. There's certain things that combine to create that. And if you're off just a fraction of an inch or fraction of a second, the passes that it takes to create that are not being completed. If you're coming into the zone and you try to hit a guy, diagonally in the circle or something like that, and you don't do it either quickly enough or crisply enough, and the other team gets a stick on that, even though you're regaining possession, your fast play is done. So then you're going to the boards, you're picking it up, you're getting in deep, you're trying to maybe get a cycle going or something like that. And if you cycle long enough, you can get guys tired. That's the other time your penalties come. But if you can't get that stuff happening on a certain night, then it's a real struggle. And I think that's a lot of what we saw tonight. Just for whatever reason, just not being in sync. And again, I have a hard time discerning whether that's something the Flyers are doing, something Montreal was doing that was effective, or a combination of both.
Yeah, Torts has talked about this, that playing against another team in the NHL on any given night where he plays tough enough, you can't play yourself too. You can't play the rest. You can't play yourself. You got to just play the opposition. And tonight it looked like the Flyers playing against themselves a little bit. And frankly, beyond tonight, it's been more than just tonight.
And I find myself wondering, coming off the last 2 weeks, if it's like the matchups have anything to do with it. And just a team is a bad matchup for another team. Like the Flyers could not get anything going on against Seattle in successive games. Yet they come out and they play Edmonton, and they are fairly dominant in both games, despite losing the second one. And that's a team that has given a lot of other teams trouble this year. Look at Pittsburgh last night. So I don't know if any of that factors into it or not. I don't know if also there's a little extra oomph in this game for Marty St. Louis. I know this is not the first time they played Montreal, but a guy like that going up against his former coach, money on the board. I don't know. It shouldn't affect things that much, but there's usually little things that go into how a game develops over the course of the night, and tonight it was just Montreal with an extra gear.
Yeah, and tomorrow night doesn't get any easier. No, there's Devils, who are a really good hockey team, and the Flyers got to just take care of control what they control, and that's being ready to play tomorrow night when the game starts. Coach talked about at the end there, before they wrapped up, about that first 10 minutes coming into Philadelphia, and how you knew you were going to be. It wasn't about coming out of that first 10 minutes when you came into Philadelphia with a lead or anything like that. It was about surviving.
Right.
It was a survival mode for the opposition, and it wasn't survival mode for Montreal tonight because they controlled it and they dictated it. And that's part of the part that's disturbing here in this game. Let's take a timeout here on the post-game show. Obviously, not a good result tonight as the Flyers go down against the Montreal Canadiens. 5-2 is the final. We're back after this. Brian Smith, Jason Martinez, it is Flyers post-game show on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
You are listening to the Flyers post-game show.
All the action on the ice.
And we are back in this Flyers post-game show as the Flyers fall against the Montreal Canadiens. 5-2 is your final. The Canadiens in this game end up shooting the Flyers dry as this tries to load up. 31-26. Face-offs in the game, 31-25 in favor of Montreal. 32-17 the hits in favor of the Flyers because they're chasing the puck a lot. Penalty minutes, 19-5. Now, 17 of that comes, obviously, on one play for Wade Allison, who gets the 5 for fighting, the 2 for the instigator, and the 10-minute misconduct. show yourself in the locker room for a little while here, son. Goals in the game by Montreal. Savard, Tierney, Suzuki. They open up a 3-0 lead. Flyers early in the third, 9 seconds in. Tippett picks up his 17th. Really nice shot there. Used the traffic well, I thought. Frost picks up the assist. Jesse Yolonen picks up his first NHL goal. And that regains the 4-1 lead, a 3-goal lead for Montreal. At 12 Flyers scores in the third period on that redirect. And at 18:32, Ivan Provorov, minute 28, picks up his 4th goal of the season. But obviously, 5-2 final here for the Flyers in a game where they played 11-7. Brian. Justin Braun played some shifts. I saw a lot of people, a lot of regards to this from the media saying, why put Justin Braun in and run him as a winger? And you got guys that you can call up, or Kiefer Bellows. Why is that the better option? And it's an interesting question because we want to find out who guys are and who's doing what's what. Are we trying to up Justin Braun's trade value by playing him at wing? I mean, is that?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a fair question. It is a fair question, and I believe that time is coming. I just don't know if the Flyers are at that point yet where they're ready to maybe switch gears to giving some experience to other players. I still think that this is a team where John Tortorella is putting out there the guys that have the most favorable impact on the team. So I think time is coming. I think it's coming quickly. I just don't know if it's going to happen before the deadline or not. The Flyers do have a good bit of young talent in Lehigh Valley, guys that they're going to want to get a look at here, over the next 6 weeks or so. And obviously the NHL team is the priority, but you do have a group down there in Lehigh Valley that is, in a playoff situation. They are going to probably be a playoff team, and those guys down there can get a lot of experience if they're somehow able to go on a long playoff run. So you don't want to necessarily decimate them. They are coming up on a pretty rough road trip here within the division. They've got Hershey on the road tomorrow, Bridgeport on the road on Sunday. So it's not exactly the time, I don't think, to just when you have that opening to just pull a guy up to take a look at him, because they're trying to not necessarily sabotage what they're doing. I think they're going to get looks at guys here. It is going to be interesting to see how they form it, because there's a very obscure rule that not a lot of folks probably are familiar with. When it comes to the AHL and the NHL, that after the deadline, you're only permitted 4 recalls from Lehigh Valley on a regular basis, without, which means non-emergency conditions. You can call up guys if you have injuries and stuff like that, but as far as just regular recalls, you can only recall 4. The Flyers are going to want Sam Emerson to play down there in the playoffs, so they have to send him down at the deadline and then call him back up. That's going to be one of the 4. So they're going to have.
I think he might go down after tomorrow night's game. To be honest with you.
I mean, I would not be surprised. I really would.
Because Kristen got hurt again.
Yeah. They have a very difficult situation down there. So you might be right.
You can't lose Sanchez from the waivers. I mean,
right. You can't because of that.
Yeah. And I was told that you gotta look out for a team like Columbus, because they're going to trade Jonas Corposalo. He's been really good.
Yep.
And they may be looking for a goalie. So you go, well, Sandstrom hasn't been that good this year. Who cares if a team?
He's a goalie.
He's a goalie. Yes. And there's not a ton of those in the system because you can't carry a ton of them.
You don't have room for them. Right?
Yeah. And that's just the way it is with that position. With Grosnick hurt again now, you can't risk that. So if you want to have him go through waivers, you're probably better off doing it after next Friday, a week from today, in the trade deadline, because teams are going to be looking to handle that way. And teams are going to trade gold. I mean, there's teams that maybe going to the playoffs that are looking for Pittsburgh, probably looking for goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, Tristan Jarry ain't in.
Right, exactly. So there will be times to look guys from the American Hockey League tonight. I do think it might be a little bit telling that they don't have much faith in Kiefer Bellows, that he doesn't play tonight.
But I think they'd have preferred him somebody claimed him on waivers
Yeah,
and they
I
put him
mean,
on it.
That's neither here nor there, but
Contract.
it's a minimal contract. I think I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's not something that's making or breaking anything.
Yeah, it's a mil.
But, it's just one of those situations here tonight where the Flyers didn't see the benefit in making a recall like that on a night like this. If it's last night, maybe they did. I don't know, but we'll see where they go here next 10 days with the deadline and how things settle out after that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, I can't wait to get in the car and see that notification that Torch has spoken. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. I really can't. I don't know what we're going to get. I don't know if we're going to get angry Torch. I don't know if we're going to get sympathetic Torch. I don't know, because we don't know what that message is in the room.
I mean, to me, there were games on that road trip where it was clear that it was the other team's effectiveness that Flyers were having trouble with. Seattle, it's clear to me.
It's like all those years that the Islanders gave the Flyers out.
Yeah.
The matchup was just so different.
Yeah, and Vancouver. I felt in the Vancouver game the Flyers really kind of played a lot better than that score showed. Again, it was kind of a 3-2 game in the grand scheme of things, with some puck luck going Vancouver's way. But again, when you look at the standings, you see Montreal all the way down there, and it looks bad when this sort of thing happens. But again, they just did the same thing to the New Jersey Devils last night. So they are obviously a team that is, either improving or has found a niche, at least in this current situation, to play better than that record shows.
No doubt about it. All right, let's wrap it up there. Let's start thanking some people. We'll get out of here. So we're going to be back in 21 hours, roughly, as we'll get you ready for Flyers Devils tomorrow night from the Rock. Are you going to the Rock?
No, I am not.
Why?
Well, because my son's in the Delaware All-State Corral, and they have a concert tomorrow. So I'll be joining you from lovely Dover, Delaware State University.
Beautiful.
It's great what technology offers us these days.
Thank God for it, right? Let's thank Mike Ito back at the station, did a real nice job. Let's thank Tom Alvord, who was on highlights tonight. Let's also thank Betsy Deming, our on-site engineer. And let's thank the broadcast crew of Tim Saunders, Steve Coates, Brian Smith, and we'll thank myself too, Jason Rodriguez.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes, great job by us. Flyers go down 5-2 against Montreal Canadiens on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Good night, everybody. Thank myself.
Thanks.